I'll continue, but we're doing a new game. We're doing Saito's route. Woohoo! I've experienced it already, but I don't mind doing it again to refresh my brain from a couple, months ago now. Let's go! Slowly push the mic closer to me. Winter 1864. In order to find my father, with whom I lost contact, I, Chizuru Yukimura, visited Kyoto. In that city, I bore witness to a horrifying secret hidden within a group called the Shinsengumi, the Fury, a creature with white hair and crimson eyes. Luckily, I was safe in the vicious clutches of the Furies by Saito of the Shinsengumi. Also, Okita was there, but I'm not going to say a damn thing about him. Because I had discovered the Shinsengumi secret, it was proposed that I live with the Shinsengumi men. Since they were also searching for my father. As such, I was to serve under Hichikata-san as the commander's page, a role I performed proudly. So thus began my life with the Shinsengumi. I heard rumors, well, whispers really, that the Shinsengumi were little more than a bunch of crooked ronin, but my life with them proved otherwise. Their commitment to protect the safety of Kyoto made them the last of a dying breed, true samurai. It set them apart from those who only craved power. Among the men was Saito-san. He was a left-handed master of Iai, who led the 3rd Division of the Shinsengumi as its captain. My fate beside Saito-san became entwined with the events of the Ikeda Inn incident, the Hamaguri Rebellion, and the Aburano-koji incident. I remember one such time with the 3 men claiming to be demons. Chikage Kazuma, Kyuju Amagiri, and Kyo Shiranui confronted the Shinsengumi. However, time has been unkind to us since then. At the time, the fate of the shogunate was threatened by the Sacho, which later culminated in the inevitable battle for control of the nation. In an effort to defend my life, Saito-san confronted a demon one-on-one in battle, and he drank the water of life, which transformed him into a fury. Unfortunately, the battle ended in favor of the Sacho, and the Shinsengumi were driven from Kyoto. They set sail for Edo in hope of a new start. In this case, we don't start at the end, we actually start at the headquarters. We sailed from Osaka, clinging onto our desperate hopes, and with good fortune reached Edo safely. We used the humble home of one of the Hanamoto as our headquarters for the time being. After, weeks of Hichikata trying to find its place to live and also do a retaliatory strike back at the Sacho, or the Imperial Army, I guess in this case. One thing that became privy to our attention is how talk of the Sacho troops flooded the city. Although I had tried my best to forget them, the events of the Battle of Tobofushimi still left a bitter taste in my mouth. To strengthen the Fury Corps, whose numbers were threatened, Senaton and Heisuke had been running tirelessly around the city in search of candidates. I'm still wondering how that works, but okay. Their method of recruitment, however, was a question I had decided was best left unanswered. Beyond all of this chaos, I felt extremely frustrated with how little I could do to help the warriors. It was a wintry day, edging on the cups of spring. Among the brisk winds blowing through my window, I heard the townspeople shouting, "Isn't it great? Isn't it great?" repeatedly. Over a month had passed since our first arrival in Edo.
Yukimura senpai, どうしたんですか? 何か考え事でも?
なんもない。
次に薩長と戦えるのは一体いつになるんだろうな。
そのために今、土方副長が幕府のお偉いさんに掛け合って再選の許しをもらおうとしてるんだろう。
That is true. He's been trying to do that for over a month since we've arrived, so hasn't happened yet.
それは分かってるけど。
As the two of them exchanged points, an outside voice interrupted their conversation.
いやー、相変わらずやかましい声だよな。ええじゃないか、ええじゃないかって。情緒のかけらもありゃしね
ええじゃないか。Alright, alright. ええじゃないか。
まあ、何もかも忘れて踊り狂いたくなるのもわからなくはねえよ。明日にも薩長が攻めてくるかもしれねえってご時世だもんな。
That is a scary thought, Harada.
佐野も踊りに行ってくるか。腹の傷に顔描いて踊れば大注目間違いなしだぜ。
てめえ、今日はよっぽど自腹で飲みてえみてえだな。せっかくおごってやろうと思ったのによ。
何言ってんだよ佐野。冗談に決まってんじゃねえか。俺は江戸っ子だから心にもねえ言葉がつい口をついて出ちまうんだって。
Are you sure about that, Nagakura? Oh, were the two of you planning on going somewhere?
おう、豚書の中でじっとしてても気が塞ぐだけだと思ってよ。
せっかくだからパーッと飲みに行こうと思ってるんだ。
相馬、野村、お前らも来るだろ
いえ、俺は。
俺もこの時期に飲むのはちょっと。
バカ野郎、そういうのがダメだっつうんだよ。単車の中で腐ってだって状況が良くなるわけじゃねえだろうが。つべこば言わずについてこい。
千鶴、お前も来るか?
No, thank you. I believe I'm going to refrain. There are other things to which I must attend.
そっか。ならしょうがねえか。
万が一土方さんが戻ってきたら親の葬式に出てるとか適当に言いくるめといてくれ。
Funeral or something. Okay.
そんじゃ留守番頼むぜ。
Bye. Nagakura and Harada were practically dragging Soma and Nomura out the door with them. Of course they would drag them. I see no other response to this situation by those two that involves those two. It became a somewhat common occurrence for both Nagakura and Harada to go out for drinks lately. Sure, they were cheery on the outside, but I was afraid to think that their apathy was a result of the defeat of Toba Fushimi. Although it was a huge relief to hear that Kondo-san's shoulder was recovering well, and that he was due to return back to active duty soon, both Kondo-san and Hijikata-san's top priority was negotiating with the chief vessels of the shogunate. As a result, the person tasked with ensuring that all duties were seen to completion at headquarters was...
雪村、すずりと炭が見当たらんが、どこにあるか知らんか。
I think it might be in Hijikata-san's office, but I imagine I'd anger him quite a bit to hear that we have used it without his permission. Give me a moment, please. If I recall, there's another set as well. Let me find it.
あ、なるべく早く頼む。
Inkstone and ink. Will these do?
感謝する。
Saito-san extended his hands to grab the inkstone, and he began to glide it across a short table to make ink. Beside him sat a thick pile of documents, which I had assumed were what Saito-san had in store for himself. No. Saito-san, is there anything that I might do to help you?
特にない。
But are you supposed to do all of this work by yourself? That'd be impossible.
無理ではない。あんたは自分の仕事をしろ。
Well, I finished most of what I needed to do today. Well, I finished most of what. Damn it. Well, I finished most of what I needed to do today, so please, anything. Saito-san was silent, turning to stare at me with a blank expression. After what looked like a moment of deep consideration,
では、この紙束を閉じるのを手伝ってくれ。閉じるための小よりと千枚同士はそこにある。
I began to enclose the parchment as he instructed. Quiet sounds of ink pressed into parchment, and the following ruffle of said parchment filled the room. Come to think of it, it had been nearly a month since Saito-san had drunk the water of life. Normally, it would have been excruciatingly painful for him to be awake, let alone accomplish tasks, while there was still sunlight. But looking at Saito-san operate with such swift efficiency, I would have never guessed otherwise. Without being too invasive, I stared at him deeply. It was at the point where I had begun to question whether or not his Fury transformation was all a part of some elaborate dream I had. However, I knew this to be untrue, because I saw it with my own eyes. Ouch!
どうした？
Oh, I cut my finger with the awl. Don't worry, it'll heal quickly.
指を見せてみろ。
Saito-san grabbed my hand eagerly. Then it was as if he were caught in a daze, and he stared intently at my fingers as blood began to trickle. His face was pale as snow, but his eyes had a peculiar sparkle within them, as if he were hungry. I couldn't help but find this odd. Watching his eyes gleam with such force I almost said hesitation, but I mean it kind of does. Constraint. Watching his eyes gleam with such force constraint worried me, and I called out to him. Saito-san. At last, Saito-san seemed to snap out of his trance, glancing away awkwardly.
急いで手当てをしろ。傷口から毒が入らぬとも限らん。
If someone had been watching the two of us from afar, this would have been difficult to notice, but thick droplets of sweat began to form on Saito-san's forehead. It was obvious to see this was atypical. I assume it was because... So, Saito-san, do you want blood? His shoulders perked almost immediately. I knew it. Even though you've become a fury, you've been forcing yourself to stay awake during the day, which I'm sure is only draining your energy. However, Sato-san neither confirmed nor denied my claims, instead sitting stoically in silence. Perhaps my comment was out of line, but it was impossible to ignore the signs. Why are you pushing yourself so much? You could be like Sana-san and Heisuke, and you could rest during the day and act during the night. That way you could minimize your fatigue. Sato-san glared at me with white-hot intensity for entertaining such an idea.
俺が昼間ここを開けたら誰があんたを守るというのだ。
Huh? The meaning of Saito-san's words had not registered immediately after he'd said them.
風間があんたを連れに来た時、眠っていて気づきませんでしたでは話にならん。他の人間は出払ってしまっている。だから俺が起きて見張っているだけだ。何か問題でもあるか？
No, it's not, but... Are you telling me that the only reason you stay awake during the day is to protect me?
副長からの命を受けているからそうしているまでだ。
But then...
これもタイムの一環だ。あんたが気にすることではない。
Saito-san spoke curtly before falling into another prolonged silence as he toiled away with the inkstone. I had no response prepared, so I could only watch him work quietly from behind him. With that, I was left with no choice but to return to my work. Later on that evening, I patiently waited for Heisuke to wake up so that we could discuss the day's events. The sun dropped into the horizon, melting into the dusk like fresh amber drippings from the tree.
おはようって別にお早くねえけど。
Oh, Heisuke! There's something I wanted to ask you. Do you have a moment to spare?
あ、なんだよ、珍しいじゃねえか。
Someone may overhear us, so do you mind if we step outside?
で、聞きたいことって何なんだ？
As a fury, how much of a strain does it put on your body to stay awake during the day?
はじめくんのことか。
I nodded, and Heisuke stroked his chin. It seems like Saito-san has been working just as hard as he was before he became a fury. But he looks like he's suffering tremendous pain. And well, originally I planned on telling Heisuke about my interaction with Saito-san, but I was unsure of how best to phrase it. It was almost as if I said it aloud. I was dehumanizing Saito-san, reducing him to a monster in spite of who he truly was.
もしかしてはじめくん、血を飲みたいって言ってたのか？
Her reaction alone seemed to give Heisuke all of the information he needed to deduce the situation.
そうか、やっぱりな。そろそろ発作が出てなきゃおかしいと思ってたんだ。昼間あれだけ動いてるんだから。
So, what do you suggest I do? Should I tell him to drink blood? Heisuke paused before answering, staring at a nearby lantern flickering in the darkness. Maybe it was difficult for him to decide as well. However, Heisuke was the only person I trusted to advise me on how best to approach Saito-san.
血を飲むのが一番だって三男さんは言ってたけど。
Of course he does.
さすがにそれはちょっとはじめくんも受け入れたくねえんじゃねえかな。
what could I really do? If Saito-san were to suffer one of those episodes, was there anything I could do? Maybe, and this was a big maybe, I could save Saito-san. By letting him drink my blood?
あとそれから
What is it? What's wrong? Is there anything else bothering you?
いや前に三男さんがお前について話してたのを思い出してさ、お前の鬼の血を研究すれば落ち水を改良できるんじゃねえかって。
My blood?
もちろん俺は反対したけどな。成功の見込みがあるかわからねえ実験にお前を付き合わせるわけにはいかねえし。
What Heisuke had said troubled me, because I had a suspicion that I was being watched as of late. Had that person been Sanon-san? Heisuke noticed me contemplate the implication of such a thing, and seemingly in response, he pulled something from his pocket to hand to me.
あのさ、千鶴、これやるよ。
What is this?
高堂さんが身分に残していった資料を読んだ松本先生が調合してくれたんだ。これを飲めばしばらくの間発作を抑えられるんじゃねえかな。
Really? But how in the world did Matsumoto-sensei... I had been under the impression that Matsumoto-sensei was firmly against researching the theories.
まあ先生も気は進まなかったみてえだけど、医者として目の前で苦しんでる人を放ってはおけないってさ。
I see. I grabbed the medicine handed to me by Heisuke, and I placed it snugly into the pocket of my kimono. So, I'll tell him to drink this medicine when he starts exhibiting symptoms, right?
あ、でも発作がひどくなると効かなくなってくるから、あくまでもその場しのぎでしかないってことは覚えておいてくれよな。
Understood. I'll keep this as a last resort.
そんじゃ俺用事があるからそろそろ行くよ。
Heisuke waved happily before turning around to walk back into the building. After a few steps, he seemed to have remembered something, and he turned to face me again.
あのさ、はじめくんのことを。
Oops. I'll do it again. Hold on.
あのさ、はじめくんのことを気をつけてやってくれよな。
Huh?
俺とか三男さんはなんだかんだ言ってずぶといところがあるけど、はじめくんはどんな時でも新選組が一番で、自分が本当にヤバい状況だってことにも気づかねえうちに倒れちまいそうな気がするから。
Right. Once more, Heisuke bowed his head and walked away. He was right. Saito-san had quite the penchant for working himself to the bone. Saito-san. He was different than the other warriors. His tendency to prioritize both the Shinsengumi and by proxy Hijikata-san's orders was unwavering. Of course, no one considered it to be a fault per se, but it was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore that his decision was taking a toll on him. Saito-san sacrificed his humanity for the sole purpose of protecting me, so if there was anything I could do to alleviate his pain, even just a little, I would do it. Heisuke had just mentioned that father left some documents behind in Mibu. Perhaps if I were to visit my childhood home, I could uncover even more information about the Furies. That settles it. I would visit my home tomorrow.